Here I'm going to show you how to put together a triptych. So this time we're putting together 3 photos, which is a little trickier as far as thinking about your arrangement. In this case, I'm going to be putting 2 vertical pictures together with 1 horizontal. So I've got this picture. So here are my 2 vertical, and then my horizontal one is here. And I'm going to arrange it so I have a vertical on each side of my horizontal. So I'm going to do the same process for a diptych, where I'm going to create a new document. I want to make sure I know which, if my width or my height is going to be wider. In this case, my width is, so I'm going to change this to 8.5 by, or 11 by 8.5. Make sure my resolution is at 300. And then I'm going to name this triptych and say OK. All right, so I have my blank document. I need to change my view. I'm going to bring up multiples so that I can make sure I see them all. So this is one picture I'm going to drag over, so I'm going to bring it across. I'm going to bring across this one as well. And I'm also going to bring this one across. So then I'll consolidate my view. So I'm going to move this, I'm going to change the size. In this case, I don't need it to be huge because I'm trying to fit 3 pictures across, which is a lot. So I'm going to end up having pretty small or pretty big borders on the top and bottom. So I'm going to get it to about the size I think now. Then I'm going to go to my next one and I'm going to change the size. So edit, transform, and then scale. I can't see very much of the bounding box, so that means I need to zoom out. And I'm going to move it. I want to see as much of this picture as possible. I will cut off a little bit though, and I'll show you a way that you can do that. So it doesn't have to line up with my other pictures exactly yet, but I'm going to try and get it fairly close. I think I'll have it go on top of that picture as well. I'm going to leave it like this for now, and I can always make adjustments later. I'm going to bring this up to the top, and then I'm actually going to move this one off to the side a little bit more. Move this one over, and then I'm going to go to my third picture, and I'm going to make this one bigger with edit, transform, and scale. And I'm going to make this a little bigger to zoom in. I can always realign it later. So from here, I want to think about having this one and this one a similar size. I want to also think about the placement of this, which right now I want to create symmetrical balance, so I'm going to move it over. Because this middle picture is on top, no matter where I move it, it's going to have the same width. So I'm going to create that. And then I'm going to crop in this picture just a little bit. So I'm not actually going to use the crop tool for this because it'll crop my entire image out. I'm going to use my selection tool, and I'm going to select the parts of the picture that I would like to keep. I'm going to keep most of it. I'm just going to take off a little bit of that left side. Once I've done that, then I'm going to add a layer mask. And all it does is it gets rid of anything that I don't want to see, but I can go back to it later. And that way I can see just a tiny bit more of this picture. I am going to also resize this just a little bit further. Okay, then I'm going to use the move tool, and I'm going to start to align these a little bit more. I'm going to use borders to divide them and clean it up as well. So from here, I'm going to go to my rectangle tool. I want to switch this to have white up because I know I'm going to have white borders coming through here. I'm going to make them very skinny so that they're subtle. And then I'm going to duplicate that layer right away. I want to make sure it's on top first above all my other layers. So I'm going to move it up. I'm going to duplicate it, Command J, so that I have the exact same size on both of my borders here. That creates consistency once again. So I'm going to go back to this one. I'm going to move it over so it lines up between my pictures. And then now that I'm looking at this picture and this picture, I want to make sure they're a consistent size. So to do that, I'm just going to go to View. I'm going to go to Rulers. It's going to bring up rulers on the top and bottom. And my width is 8.5 by 11. So if I look at the size of this picture, it's just over 2 inches. If I look at the size of this picture, it's just under 2 inches. So I'm going to create a little more balance by moving this layer over. And this time it looks like it's pretty close to aligned to 2 inches on both sides. I'll just arrow it over to get it placed. Then after that, I'm going to move both of my borders. So I'm going to click on one, hold Shift, and click on the other. And that way I can move them both at the same time just to make it a little quicker. Line it up. And then now that I've done that, I need to move this picture, which is my layer 3, and arrange my composition once again. So use the rulers to help you guide and line up things. Then I'm going to have to create a border on the top and bottom to even this out. So I'm going to go back to the top section of my layers, click on rectangle once again. I'm going to create my rectangle through this whole space. And then it creates a nice even border on top. And I'm going to duplicate it to do the same thing on the bottom. So it's duplicated. I can see it in my layers here in order to actually get it to show up. I'm going to just move it down to cover up that edge. Then once I do my matting, I'm going to cover up those borders, so I'll still have just a thin border going around. But this way it makes it clean. So we want our pictures to be even overall. Nice thin borders in between the pictures and clean on the top and bottom. Now I'm going to look at my editing. I edited these pictures before I brought them together, which wasn't my best idea because now my color is different for all of them. It's the biggest changes in this one. So I'm going to click on this picture. I'm going to go to, it looks like I did a color curves change. I'm going to move this off to the side so I can see everything that I need to as far as color. I'm going to start with my red, bringing up the reds in that picture. I'll make sure I do a clipping mask so it stays just on there. So I'll bring out some blues. I'll go to my greens, see what it looks like when I bring the color up or down. And then I'm going to go to my blues and also look at how that changes the image. There it starts to bring out a little more of those yellows, which is good. I'm also going to do one other thing to bring out those yellows. And I'm going to go back to red. I'm going to bring out more of the red in the shadow area like I have in my other images. So that's getting it closer. This still isn't exact. So I need to bring out more of that yellow tone. So a photo filter will allow that yellow to come through. So I'm going to click on photo filter here. I'm going to take off preserve luminosity, and that gives more of that overall color feel there. And then I can either change the color here, or I can actually choose a different filter. Looks like I used kind of a yellowish in my other ones, like this. So I can keep that, or I could choose a slightly different one. So that's getting it a little closer to consistent between all of my pictures. I might even go back to this one. And I want to make sure I apply clipping mask to that. There we go. Then that evens that out through all of the pictures nicely. So then here I'm going to save. And I'm going to choose to print either my triptych or my diptych.